Help me hit 1,000 subscribers by sharing this story if it touches your heart. The front door opened just as the clock hit 6 in the evening. In the quiet house, the sound of wheels on the hard floor echoed everywhere. It was the sound of a suitcase being pulled inside. I stayed right where I was, sitting at the dining room table. I did not get up to say hello. My cup of coffee had been sitting there for a long time. It was cold and had a thin skin on top. Right next to my cold drink was a large, heavy brown envelope. It was the kind of envelope people use for important papers. The kind that holds documents that change lives forever. My wife Olivia walked into the room. She was wearing her sunglasses on top of her head. She had many shopping bags in her hands. She was coming back from her trip where she went away all by herself. She had told me she really needed that time alone to think and clear her mind. She said it would help her figure out what she wanted from life and from our marriage. I had nodded and agreed, even though every part of me wanted to ask her why she couldn't figure those things out while staying here with me. She gave me a small, polite smile, the kind you give to a person you don't know very well. The kind of smile you give to a neighbor you pass on the street or a clerk at the grocery store. It wasn't the smile of a woman greeting her husband after being away for 10 days. She shut the door behind her and took a long, slow breath. She looked like she had practiced what she was about to say. I could see it in her eyes. She had rehearsed this moment over and over again during her time away. "We need to talk," she said. Her voice was very steady and calm. Too calm. It was the kind of calm that comes from preparation and decision-making. I just nodded my head. I didn't say a word. There was nothing I needed to say yet. We sat there in silence for a long time. The only sound in the room was the ticking of the old clock on the wall that we had bought together at an antique store during our 2nd year of marriage. Back when we used to do things together. Back when we enjoyed each other's company. Then, she looked straight at me. She spoke very softly. "I have been thinking a lot while I was away," she admitted. "And the truth is, I am not sure about us anymore." She stopped talking and waited. She was waiting for me to get upset. She thought I would be scared or start asking a lot of questions. She probably expected me to give a big speech about how much I loved her. She likely imagined I would beg her to reconsider, to give us another chance, to not throw away everything we had built together. Instead of doing any of those things, I just smiled. It wasn't a mean smile, just a quiet one. A smile of someone who had already walked through the fire and come out the other side. I pushed the big brown envelope across the table toward her. The sound of the paper sliding across the wooden surface seemed louder than it should have been. I told her very calmly, "That is perfect. I signed the divorce papers this morning." Olivia's face changed completely. The confidence that had been there just moments before vanished like smoke in the wind. She frowned and picked up the envelope. At first, she looked a little bit annoyed. She looked like she thought it was just another pile of bills or boring mail that could wait until the next day. But then, she opened the first page. All the color left her face. She became very pale, almost white. She stared at the place where I had signed my name. Then she looked at the big letters at the top of the paper that read, "Petition for dissolution of marriage." "Ryan, you cannot be serious about this," she whispered. Her voice was shaking now. All that practiced calmness was gone. "I am serious," I told her quietly. My voice didn't shake at all. I had done all my shaking and crying days ago when I made this decision. She looked at me for a long time. She looked like she was waiting for me to laugh and tell her it was a joke. She wanted me to say I was just acting out because I was hurt, that I was trying to scare her into realizing what she had. "I never said I wanted this," she insisted, her voice getting a bit louder. "I didn't say I wanted a divorce. I just said I needed some space. I needed time to figure out how I felt inside." Her words came out faster now, tumbling over each other like she was trying to build a defense that would make sense of everything. I leaned back in my wooden chair and looked her right in the eyes. I told her that while she was busy deciding if our marriage was still important to her, I had to make a decision too. I had to decide if I wanted to spend the rest of my life waiting around for someone to finally choose me. I told her I had to decide if I wanted to be with someone who needed to go away for 10 days to figure out if I was worth staying with. Olivia slowly sat down in the chair across from me. She was still holding the papers tightly in her hands. Her knuckles were white from gripping them so hard. The look of confidence she had when she first walked in was totally gone. She looked smaller somehow, like she had shrunk in those few minutes. "Ryan, please do not do this," she said. Her voice was so low I could hardly hear it. "Please listen to what I have to say." I nodded my head once. I told her I was listening now. But I also told her I wished she had listened to me months ago when I asked for the same thing. When I had begged her to hear me, to really hear what I was saying about how lonely I felt in our marriage. She looked down at the floor right away. We both remembered those times. We remembered the talks we had and the times I asked her to go see a helper, a counselor with me. Back then, she told me it wasn't needed. She said we were fine and that all marriages went through rough patches. I remembered the weekends I had planned so we could be close again. I had booked a cabin in the mountains, a bed and breakfast by the beach, a cooking class in the city. She had canceled those plans because she said she needed to be alone, or she was too tired, or work was too stressful. I remembered the nights I asked her if something was wrong because I felt a distance between us. A space that kept growing wider and wider. She would always tell me I was just making up problems in my head. She said I was being too sensitive or overthinking everything. Back then, those moments didn't seem important to her. But those little moments added up. They slowly became the reason why these divorce papers were sitting on the table between us. Each canceled weekend was a brick. Each dismissed conversation was another layer. Each time she told me nothing was wrong when I could feel that everything was wrong, it built a wall between us that eventually became too high to climb over. I told her that her trip didn't break our marriage. The trip just gave me enough quiet time to realize that I was the only person still trying to save it. For 2 years, I had been carrying the weight of our relationship on my shoulders alone. I had been the one suggesting date nights. I had been the one asking how her day was and actually wanting to know the answer. I had been the one lying awake at night wondering what I could do differently to bring back the woman I married. Tears began to fill Olivia's eyes. She used the back of her hand to wipe them away, but they kept coming. "There was no other man," she whispered. "I really was alone on my trip. I didn't meet anyone. I didn't do anything wrong." I told her I believed her. And I did believe her. But the strange thing was that her answer didn't change how I felt anymore. I told her I wasn't ending things because I thought she was being unfaithful. I was ending things because she came home ready to tell her husband she wasn't sure if she wanted a life with him. And she expected him to just sit there and wait while she made up her mind. She expected me to put my life, my happiness, my future on hold while she decided if I was good enough, if our marriage was worth fighting for, if she wanted to stay or go. She put her hand over her mouth. She was finally hearing her own words the way I heard them. She was understanding, perhaps for the first time, how it felt to be on the receiving end of such uncertainty. "I thought you would fight for us," she said. Her voice was broken, cracked with emotion. I gave her a sad smile. I told her I had been fighting for us for 2 whole years. I had been fighting alone in a battle she didn't even know was happening because she refused to see it. Every time I tried to talk about our problems, I was fighting. Every time I suggested we needed help, I was fighting. Every time I planned something special to reconnect with her, I was fighting. But you can't win a war when you're the only soldier on the battlefield. The room became very quiet again. There was no yelling and no doors being slammed. There were no mean things being said or accusations being thrown across the table. It was just 2 people finally looking at the truth. One of them had been holding up the whole marriage by themselves for a lot longer than they wanted to admit. The other was just now realizing what had been lost while they weren't paying attention. Olivia looked at the papers for a very long time. Her eyes moved over the words, but I don't think she was really reading them. She was lost in thought, probably replaying the last 2 years in her mind and seeing them differently now. Then she put them back down on the table very carefully, as if they might explode. I never knew you were this unhappy, she said while she cried. The tears were flowing freely now. I looked at her gently. There was no anger in my heart toward her, just sadness for what we had lost, and acceptance of what needed to happen. I told her that was because every time I tried to tell her, she told me we would talk about it later. Later became tomorrow. Tomorrow became next week. Next week became someday. And someday never came. She closed her eyes. She was remembering all those evenings now. I could see the memories playing across her face. I would ask if we could work on things, and she would say no. She was too tired or too stressed, or she just wasn't ready to talk. She had a big project at work. She had a headache. She needed to call her mother. She wanted to watch her show. There was always a reason, always an excuse, always something more important than sitting down with her husband and talking about the fact that their marriage was falling apart. At the time, those excuses didn't seem like a big deal. Each one, on its own, seemed reasonable enough. Everyone gets tired. Everyone gets stressed. But they became a pattern that said everything else in her life was more important than us. I kept thinking there would always be another chance to fix it, she whispered. I told her I thought so too. For a long time I believed that. I believed that eventually we would get around to it. Eventually she would be ready to talk. Eventually work would slow down or stress would decrease, or the timing would be right. But I waited until I realized I was waiting for a tomorrow that was never going to come. I was waiting for a version of my wife who wanted to fight for our marriage as much as I did, and that version either didn't exist anymore, or maybe never had. The silence after that didn't feel bad. It wasn't the uncomfortable silence of two people avoiding the truth. It was the kind of silence that happens when two people stop pretending that everything is okay. When the masks come off and you can finally breathe, even if the air is heavy with sadness. After a few minutes, Olivia asked the question she had been afraid to ask. Is there anything I can say to make you change your mind? I told her the truth because she deserved to hear it. After everything, she deserved honesty. I told her that if she had asked me that 6 months ago, or maybe even 3 months ago, I might have said yes. Back then, I still had hope. Back then, I still believed that if she just understood how serious things were, she would change. She would make me a priority. She would fight for us. But today, I didn't think so. Too much had happened. Too much had been left unsaid for too long. Too many times I had been disappointed. More tears ran down her face. She didn't try to wipe them away anymore. I thought the trip would help me figure things out, she said. But instead, I came home and saw that I had forgotten to show you how much I mattered. I forgot to show you that you mattered to me. I nodded my head sadly. I told her I wasn't waiting for her to come back with all the right answers. I was just waiting for her to come back wanting to find the answers together with me. That's all I had ever wanted. Not perfection. Not a marriage without problems. Just a partner who was willing to work on those problems with me, instead of running away from them or pretending they didn't exist. She put her head down. For the first time in a long time, we didn't blame each other. We just accepted that the love we had was gone. It had been replaced by a big distance, and that distance had finally won. Love isn't always enough. You also need effort and communication, and the willingness to show up even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. We didn't speak for a long time after that. The only thing we could hear was the clock on the wall. The same clock that had been ticking through all our good times and all our bad times, measuring out the minutes of our life together. The minutes felt very heavy now, weighted with everything that was ending. Olivia finally spoke. "When did you decide?" she asked softly. I looked at the envelope. I told her it was the second night she was away. The house had been so quiet. I had sat in this same chair, drinking coffee that also went cold, and I realized something. She asked why then. What happened that night that made me finally decide? I took a breath. I told her it was because I realized I didn't miss my wife anymore. I only missed the way our marriage used to be a long time ago. I missed the woman who used to laugh at my jokes and hold my hand while we watched movies. I miss the couple who stayed up late talking about everything and nothing. I miss the partnership we used to have. But that woman, that couple, that partnership, they were gone. And I was mourning something that didn't exist anymore while sitting next to someone who felt like a stranger. She cried more, deep, painful sobs that shook her shoulders. "I never wanted you to feel all alone," she said between tears. I believed her. I really did. But wanting something and doing something are different. You don't lose a marriage in one big, scary moment. You lose it slowly. You lose it when one person keeps asking to fix it, and the other person thinks they have all the time in the world to wait. She looked down because she knew it was true. She couldn't argue with it because somewhere deep inside, she knew I was right. 9 months later, we were officially divorced. There was no fighting or drama. We split our things fairly and wished each other a good life. We were kind to each other through the whole process, which I think surprised our lawyers. But there was no reason to be cruel. We hadn't destroyed each other. We had just failed to save what we had. A few months after that, Olivia sent me a letter written by hand. I recognized her handwriting immediately when I pulled it out of the mailbox. She didn't ask to get back together. She just said thank you for being kind and respectful, even on the day we ended. She said therapy helped her see how easy it is for distance to grow when you keep putting off hard talks. She understood now what I had been trying to tell her for 2 years. I was happy she learned that. I genuinely hoped it would help her in whatever came next in her life. I hoped she wouldn't make the same mistakes with someone else that she made with me. People think we broke up because of one trip. But they are wrong. The trip just showed us what had been happening for a long time. When she said she wasn't sure about us, she wanted me to wait. But I had already made my choice. Sometimes the kindest way to end a story is to stop pretending that tomorrow will fix the things you won't face today.